Whispers in the wind. The first time Maya Reeves saw Noah Chen, he was examining a rare orchid with such concentration that he seemed to exist in a different world entirely. Arvale hovered mid-stroke as she paused her practice, watching him from the small musician's alcove in the Botanical Garden Conservatory. Something in his careful movements, the gentle way his fingers hovered above the delicate petals without touching them, made her miss her next note. "Sorry," she murmured. To no one in particular, the sound barely audible over the gentle bubbling of the koi pond. Tonight's fundraiser for the Botanical Gardens was still 4 hours away, and she'd arrived early to acclimate to the space's unique acoustics. The man looked up at the sound of her voice, seeming startled to discover he wasn't alone. "Don't apologize," he said. "I'm the intruder here." Maya smiled, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I don't think the flowers mind sharing the space." "Dr. Chen is perfectly welcome," came a voice from behind them. The garden director approached, clipboard in hand. "He's helping us identify some concerning spots on our rarest specimens." Maya nodded politely and returned to her practice, but found her attention drifting toward Dr. Chen throughout the afternoon. There was something both methodical and dreamy about him, a scientist with a poet's eyes. Later, during the fundraiser, Maya performed her solo piece, a haunting Paganini Caprice that echoed through the glass-domed conservatory. As the final note faded, she noticed him again. Standing apart from the crowd of wealthy donors, his eyes closed as if holding on to the last vibration of sound. "Your playing is extraordinary," he said afterward, approaching her with 2 glasses of champagne. "It reminded me of something I can't quite place." "Thank you," she replied, accepting the glass. "I'm Maya. Noah Chen, botanical researcher, occasional garden consultant, and now your newest admirer." They talked until the caterers began dismantling tables. Noah explained his work studying endangered plant species, while Maya shared stories of traveling with orchestras. What she didn't tell him was how recently she'd given up that life, returning to her hometown after years of growing disillusionment with the cutthroat classical music world. It wasn't until their 3rd date that Noah revealed his condition, a rare form of transient global amnesia that occasionally erased hours or days from his memory. "It's why I document everything," he explained, showing her the journal he carried. "My doctor believes it's degenerative, but progressing very slowly." "Does it frighten you?" Maya asked. Noah considered this, his expression thoughtful. "Not the forgetting itself, more the idea of not knowing what I've lost." He looked at her, then really looked at her. "I've avoided relationships because of it. It seemed unfair to ask someone to love a person who might wake up one day and not remember them." Maya reached across the table, her fingers lightly touching his. "Perhaps that's why we have art. Music, journals, photographs. They're all echoes of moments we don't want to lose." "Is that why you play?" he asked. Maya smiled. "I play because silence feels too empty sometimes, because certain emotions only make sense when they're turned into sound." That night, walking her home beneath a canopy of stars, Noah stopped suddenly. "I want to remember this," he said quietly. "Would you mind if I write it down?" And as he carefully noted the date, the weather, the name of the restaurant, and the way Maya's laugh sounded when he told a terrible botanical pun, she felt something unexpected taking root between them, something that whispered of possibility. Despite the uncertain future his condition presented, patterns of light, Maya discovered that loving Noah was like learning a new instrument, complex, sometimes challenging, but filled with unexpected beauty. 6 months into their relationship, they developed a rhythm that accommodated Noah's condition. His episodes were infrequent, but disorienting. He might lose anywhere from hours to several days of memory. Each time, Maya witnessed the brief confusion in his eyes, followed by the methodical way he would consult his journal to piece together what he had missed. "I think it helps that I'm a scientist," Noah told her one evening as they sat on the balcony of his apartment, surrounded by potted specimens from his research. "I'm used to observing, documenting, forming hypotheses about what happened during the gaps." Maya reached for his hand. "And what hypothesis have you formed about us?" Noah smiled, the sunset painting copper highlights across his face. that finding you was statistically improbable, but empirically perfect. That week, Maya began composing a piece specifically for Noah, musical pattern that followed the flow of his best days, with rhythmic markers that mirrored the ways he organized his life. When she played it for him the first time, his eyes widened in recognition. "You've mapped me," he said, wonder in his voice. "Somehow you've turned my scattered patterns into something beautiful." Their life together developed its own gentle structure. Noah's journals expanded to include pressed flowers from their walks, ticket stubs from Maya's performances, and detailed notes about the progression of their relationship. Maya recorded her compositions, creating a sonic timeline they could revisit together. Dr. Rivera, Noah's neurologist, was cautiously optimistic during their appointments. "The condition is progressing more slowly than we initially feared," she told them. "Whatever you're doing, it seems to be helping stabilize the episodes." What the doctor didn't say, but what Maya observed in the careful way she reviewed Noah's scans, was that the underlying deterioration continued, even as they managed the symptoms. One night, during a particularly severe episode where Noah lost nearly a week, Maya found him sitting in their living room surrounded by his journals, a look of quiet desperation on his face. "I know all the facts," he said when she sat beside him. "I know we live together now. I know we've been together for 10 months and 16 days. I know I love you because I've written it down 57 times. His voice broke. "But there are moments when I have to trust my documentation more than my own mind, and it terrifies me." Maya took the journal from his hands and set it aside. Instead of speaking, she retrieved her violin and began to play their song, the one she had composed for him. Halfway through, Noah closed his eyes, his breathing synchronizing with the music. "I remember this," he whispered. "Not just intellectually. I feel it." That night, they made a decision. Maya would incorporate musical therapy techniques into their daily routine, creating sensory anchors that might help Noah's brain form stronger memory connections. Noah would expand his documentation to include audio recordings, believing that hearing his own voice describe events might trigger deeper recall. What neither of them discussed was the shadow and the latest test results, the indication that despite their efforts, the periods of memory loss might eventually become more frequent, longer in duration. Instead, they focused on the present, the warm light filtering through the botanical specimens in their apartment, the way Noah could still identify every plant species in the park blindfolded, how Maya's music seemed to reach him even when words failed. "I have a theory," Noah told her as they lay in bed that night. "Maybe memories aren't just stored in the brain. Maybe they're in our skin, our muscles, the way we move through spaces we love. Maybe my body will remember you, even if my mind stumbles." Traced the outline of his face, memorizing it in her own way. "Then we'll just have to make sure every cell of you knows me," she whispered, "so there's no chance of truly forgetting." The forgotten song, the expedition to document endangered alpine flora in the Cascade Mountains, was supposed to last 5 days. Noah had prepared meticulously medication scheduled, journal updated with detailed information about his condition and emergency contacts, GPS tracker activated. The university research team included colleagues aware of his medical history. Everything had been planned for maximum safety. No one anticipated the early snowstorm that would separate Noah from the group, nor that when search and rescue finally located him 3 weeks later, he would have no memory of Maya at all. Retrograde amnesia, compounding his existing condition, explained Dr. Rivera in the sterile hospital consultation room. The hypothermia, combined with a fall we believe he sustained, she gestured to the healing wound on Noah's temple, has created a more significant memory disruption than his typical episodes. Maya sat perfectly still, her violinist's posture betraying nothing of the earthquake happening inside her. "How much has he lost?" "About 2 years. He remembers his research, his colleagues, his life before." But Dr. Rivera hesitated. "Before me," Maya finished. "He remembers everything except us." When she entered Noah's hospital room, he looked at her with polite curiosity, the way one might regard an unexpected visitor. She recognized that expression. It was how he had looked at her the first time they met, before she had become woven into the fabric of his life. Dr. Rivera says we live together, he said carefully, studying her face for confirmation. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Maya nodded, unwilling to trust her voice. She had brought his most recent journal, the one he had meticulously updated before. The expedition. She placed it on his bedside table but didn't open it. The doctor thinks familiar environments might help, she said instead. When you're ready to be discharged, you can come home. Or stay with your sister if that feels more comfortable. Noah's fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the journal. I'd like to understand what I've lost, he said. Days became weeks. Noah returned to their apartment, moving through the spaces with the careful attention of an anthropologist studying an unfamiliar culture. He read his journals, examined photographs, listened patiently as Maya explained the stories behind objects. That had meant something to them. But the emotional connection remained severed. A ghost of intimacy that Maya could feel, but Noah could not. Maya began the music therapy tentatively. Each morning, she would play their song, the composition she had created for him while. Noah listened with clinical interest rather than recognition. She brought her violin to the botanical gardens where they had met. Playing in the same alcove, hoping the combination of location and sound might trigger something. For 3 months, she persisted. Noah was unfailingly kind, intellectually engaged. In the process of his own recovery, but the man who had once written that he could identify her presence by the subtle change in air pressure, when she entered a room, now looked at her with the measured appreciation of a stranger. I think I should move out temporarily, Noah said one evening. I'm causing you pain by being here without being here. Maya set down her bow. Is that what you want? Want to remember? He said simply. But wanting isn't enough, and you're putting your life on hold, waiting for someone who might not come back. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep, Maya found herself drawn to his research office. She hadn't ventured inside since his return, respecting his need for a space that felt fully his own. Something about their conversation had triggered a suspicion she couldn't ignore. Among his carefully organized research files, she found a folder labeled with her name. Inside was a series of medical reports dated before his expedition reports Noah had never shared with her. They detailed a more aggressive progression of his condition than he had admitted. With one neurologist noting, patient expresses concern about becoming a burden to his partner as cognitive decline accelerates. Maya sank into Noah's desk chair. Finally understanding, expedition hadn't just been about endangered plants. It had been Noah's attempt to complete meaningful work while he still could, knowing that what awaited him was worse than either of them had prepared for. The next morning, she adjusted her approach. Instead of playing their song from the beginning, she isolated specific phrases, the musical motifs that had always seemed to resonate most deeply with Noah, and for the first time since his return, she saw something flicker in his eyes that wasn't just polite attention. That part, he said suddenly. Play that again. Echoes of memory. The breakthrough came not as a flood, but as droplets, tiny moments of recognition that gradually accumulated into something meaningful. The fragment of music that had caught Noah's attention became their new starting point. Aya would play those specific notes, then slowly expand the musical phrase. Watching as Noah's body responded before his mind could catch up, the unconscious tapping of his fingers, the slight tilt of his head that had always been his tailwind. Listening deeply. It's like déjà vu, Noah explained during one of their sessions. Not remembering exactly, but feeling like I should remember. Like my body recognizes something my brain can't access. Dr. Rivera called it procedural memory, the kind stored in muscle and movement rather than conscious recall. The pathways most resistant to damage, she explained during their monthly appointment. It's encouraging, but I want to be clear about expectations. We're not seeing regeneration of the lost memories so much as creating new associations that can serve similar functions. What the doctor didn't say, but what both Maya and Noah had come to understand, was that his condition would likely continue to progress. Each new scan showed subtle changes in the neural architecture, markers of the slow deterioration that medication could delay but not halt. After 4 months of persistent work, Noah could recognize their song completely. After 6, he began to associate specific musical phrases with shared memories, though the memories themselves remained academic knowledge rather than lived experience. He knew they had vacationed in Oregon's wine country, because both his journal and Maya told him so, but he couldn't recall the taste of the Pinot Noir they had declared their favorite. "It's like reading a novel about someone else's life," he confessed one evening. "A life that sounds wonderful, that I wish I remembered living." Maya had moved back into the spare bedroom of their apartment, maintaining a careful balance between presence and pressure. They were in many ways dating again, learning each other anew. With Noah occasionally consulting his journals like reference materials for a complex subject, it was during one such evening, as Noah reviewed his notes, from the period just before his expedition, that his expression changed. "There's a gap here," he said, flipping through pages. 3 weeks where I barely wrote anything personal, just research notes. That's not like me." Maya nodded slowly. "I noticed that too. You were distant before you left. I thought you were just focused on preparation. Or deliberately creating distance," Noah said quietly. The next day, he asked to visit his university office, a place he had avoided since his return, preferring to work remotely as he recovered. Maya accompanied him, watching as he systematically examined cabinets and drawers with the methodical attention that had always characterized his work. In a locked filing cabinet, beneath layers of research papers, they found it, a sealed envelope, addressed to Maya, dated 1 week before his expedition. Inside were dozens of letters, each with a specific date for Maya, to open them dates that stretched 2 years into the future. "I knew," Noah whispered, staring at his own handwriting. "I knew, and I was preparing you for what was coming, creating a runway for departure." That night, they read the first letter together, the one Noah had intended Maya to open a month after his expedition. When he had planned to tell her about the accelerated progression of his condition, the letter was unflinchingly honest about the prognosis, about Noah's fear of becoming someone who repeatedly forgot her, about his desire to spare her from witnessing his decline. "I loved you too much to ask you to become my caretaker," Noah had written. "Better a clean break than 1,000 small goodbyes." Maya looked up from the letter to find Noah watching her, his expression a complex mixture of regret and wonder. "I think," he said carefully, "that past me underestimated you considerably." "Past you is trying to be noble," Maya replied, "but nobility is sometimes just another word for making decisions that belong to both people in a relationship." For the first time since his return, Noah reached for her hand without prompting or hesitation, a gesture his body remembered even if his mind did not. Symphony of time, they created a new approach together, one that acknowledged both the reality of Noah's condition and their refusal to surrender to its timeline. The letters Noah had written became not a farewell, but a guide, insights from his past self that helped bridge the cognitive gaps his present self experienced. Dr. Rivera connected them with specialists in memory retention therapy. Maya collaborated with music therapists to refine her techniques. Noah applied his researcher's mind to his own condition, documenting which interventions seemed most effective and developing hypotheses about why certain sensory combinations triggered stronger responses than others. "I think it's about creating redundant systems," Noah explained as they developed what they came to call their memory symphony. "If one pathway fails, another can still reach the destination." Their apartment transformed into a carefully orchestrated environment where scent, sound, light, and texture all worked in concert. Lavender in the bedroom, because olfactory memories were among the most resilient. Specific lighting patterns that shifted with the time of day. Textured surfaces in strategic locations that Noah would touch as he moved through rooms, creating tactile anchors. And always, Maya's music, different compositions for different spaces and activities, creating a sonic map of their shared life. On good days, when the interventions worked seamlessly, Noah moved through their world with a fluid awareness that almost mimicked complete recall. On difficult days, when confusion descended despite their best efforts, they had protocols in place, gentle redirections, journal references, and the sanctuary of Noah's study where he could retreat until the fog lifted. "I have a theory," Noah told Maya as they sat together in the Botanical Garden Conservatory on the anniversary of their first meeting. "Maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Maybe memory isn't just about retaining the past, but about how we choose to experience the present." Maya watched a monarch butterfly land on a nearby flower. What do you mean? Most people take memory for granted, Noah continued. They accumulate experiences without fully attending to them, assuming those moments will always be accessible. But I don't have that luxury. He turned to face her fully. Every moment with you requires my complete presence because I can't be certain I'll keep it otherwise. Maya considered this a forced mindfulness. Exactly. And isn't that its own kind of gift? To never take a single second with you for granted? They celebrated small victories. The morning Noah recognized Maya instantly upon waking for the first time in months. The day he played back a melody she had taught him the previous week. The afternoon he spontaneously remembered the name of the wine they had loved in Oregon. These moments weren't recovery in the traditional sense. His condition continued its progression. But they were evidence of the new neural pathways they were forging together. Alternate routes to connection, Noah continued his research, focusing now on cognitive resilience in patients with memory disorders. Maya composed a complete symphony based on their experience, performing it with her former orchestra to raise awareness and research funding. Together, they established a foundation. To support couples navigating similar challenges, time became their most precious resource. Each moment carefully documented and savored. Noah's journals evolved into multimedia archives, voice recordings, pressed flowers, fabric swatches, musical notations, and photographs, all meticulously preserved. Maya learned to recognize the subtle signs that preceded his episodes and developed strategies to ease the transitions. There's something I want you to know, Noah said one evening as they sat on their balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in improbable colors. Something important enough that I want to make sure it's not lost, even if everything else someday is. Maya waited, giving him the time he needed to find the right words. I may not always remember the specifics of our story, he said finally. But I will always recognize that I am better, more whole, more fully myself when you are near. That knowledge lives in places even this condition can't reach. Maya reached for his hand, interlacing their fingers. Then we'll keep creating our symphony, she said. Day by day, note by note, for as long as we can. And as the last light faded from the sky, Noah carefully documented the moment in his journal, not just the facts and the time, but the feeling of certainty that came with finally understanding that some connections transcend even the fragility of memory.